Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. Two-Lane Blacktop is a 1971 American road movie that was directed by Monty Hellman. It was written by Rudy Wurlitzer, and it stars songwriter and singer James Taylor, the Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson, Warren Oates, and Laurie Bird. The storyline goes that the driver and the mechanic are two car freaks driving a 1955 Chevy through the southwestern U.S. They look constantly for cars to race. They're totally dedicated to their car, and they speak with each other only when necessary. At a gas station, the pair, along with a girl who has integrated herself into their world, meet GTO, a middle-aged man driving just that, a GTO. It's decided that they're going to have a race to Washington, D.C., where the winner will get the loser's car. Principal photography began in August of 1970 in L.A., and it lasted for 8 weeks, with the crew of 30 and 3 matching Chevrolets, plus 2 matching GTOs, traveling through the Southwest towards Memphis, Tennessee. The director insisted on going across the country like the characters in the film because he felt like that was the only way to convince the audience that the characters raced across the U.S. He also took a real unconventional approach by not letting the 3 leads in the film, who were inexperienced actors, read the script. Instead, he gave them pages of dialogue on the day of shooting. The actors felt terribly uncomfortable with this approach. In particular, James Taylor, who was used to having control when it came to his music, and he really wanted to read the scripts in advance. The director eventually gave in and gave him permission to read the script, but Taylor never did. They shot almost the entire script as it was written. The first cut of the film was 3.5 hours long. He did have control of the final cut of the film, but he was obligated contractually to deliver a film that was no longer than 2 hours in length. The final version is 105 minutes long. Unlike the other road movies of that time, such as Easy Rider and Vanishing Point, Two-Lane Blacktop does not rely heavily on music, and a soundtrack album was not released. The music featured in the film covers many genres, though. It covers rock, folk, blues, country, bluegrass, and rhythm and blues. And James Taylor and Dennis Wilson, who are known for their music, didn't contribute any of their own music to the film. But there are some real notable tracks that are featured in the movie, including Moonlight Drive by The Doors, Maybelline, performed by John Hammond, and the one that stands out most to me is Me and Bobby McGee, performed by Chris Christopherson. The reason the movie took so long to release after filming and editing was done was Jim Morrison. The movie has a soundtrack in some of the scenes where the Doors music is playing in the background. The director and the producers had trouble initially securing permission from Morrison's estate to release the film. Eventually, the studio got permission to use the Doors music, and it was released that way. I think it's interesting that James Taylor has never actually seen the film that he was in. He says he wants to see it now, but just hasn't taken the time to do it. And the drummer for the Beach Boys, Dennis Wilson, gave his only acting performance in this movie. And even though these guys are not actors, they do a pretty good job in the film. The makeup department didn't exist in filming. No one in the film wore makeup. Esquire magazine loved the movie, and they considered it and named it their film of the year. They even published the entire screenplay in one of their issues. As I said earlier, 3 1955 Chevrolets were used as the street racer in the movie. One of the cars used in the film was driven by Harrison Ford in the 1973 movie American Graffiti. The second vehicle was recently located in Canada, intact and untouched. The third car had a complete roll cage installed in it that was going to be used for a rollover scene that wasn't filmed. A lot of people considered this movie the purest American road movie ever made. And there's a few things that make it stand out. One of them being that the only thing that can come between a boy and his car obsession is a girl. And Laurie Bird, who plays the girl in the film, perfectly messes up the oneness between the driver and the mechanic and their car. The movie's grand because the two young men on their trip to nowhere really don't know how to talk. The driver doesn't really converse when he's behind the wheel, and the mechanic doesn't talk when he's working on the car. So the movie is primarily a visual, atmospheric experience. To watch the film correctly is to become absorbed into it. The film originated from the producer, Michael Laughlin. He convinced the production company to pay Will Corey $100,000 for his original story about two men, one black and one white, who drive across the country, followed by a young girl, which was inspired by his own cross-country journey in 1968. He brought in Rudolph Wurlitzer to do a rewrite on the script and to add and change things to it. To prepare for writing this script, he stayed in a Los Angeles motel and read nothing but car magazines, as well as hanging out with several obsessive mechanics and what he calls stoner car freaks. Now, the girl in the film is played by Laurie Bird. She added a lot of excitement to the set on the days when they relaxed somewhat and did some swimming, although hers was done without clothes on, or at least the top, providing an enormous amount of excitement to James Taylor and Dennis Wilson. Laurie Bird wasn't in very many movies. She starred in 3 films, including this one, during the 1970s. 2 of them were directed by this director, Monte Hellman, who she was initially romantically involved with. Then she became involved with Art Garfunkel, the singer. But in 1979, she died by taking an overdose of Valium in the New York City apartment that she shared with Garfunkel. He was deeply affected by her death, and he states that he absolutely adored her. The other sadness involved with this is that her mother also died in this manner at the age of 25. Take a look back at this classic road movie. You'll absolutely love it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.